So, good afternoon, dear friends. We are starting our roundtable, our panel discussion. Thank you for finding the time and coming here today. I hope that in an hour you'll be enriched with some new knowledge about clouds, or at least we will work on good weather and well, not cloudless sky, because cloudless is not good for us, but we will talk about clouds. So I'm Alexey Rudym. I'm the CEO of a CS company, and I'm also a producer of the internet radio LOSEY. And we are represented here at the exhibition today. And many of our participants and speakers already participated in our programs on our internet radio. So today we will discuss cloud business, the development of cloud technologies. At Phenopolis, we first talked about it 4 years ago, and today we would like to track the progress over those 4 years, where the cloud market moved. Can we say that cloud solutions are now at the top of the solutions? Are they applicable? What's happening with the private and public clouds? Whether people trust cloud technologies, because trust is the main thing that defines whether cloud technologies are used or not. And if we talk about transparent cloud technologies, those that we have on our smartphones, for example, when our photos are synchronized with the cloud and we don't even think about it, it's just a usual life for us. But when we talk about business, well, we have to choose every time whether to operate locally or in the cloud. And so this will be the topic of our discussion with our experts today. And now I'd like to introduce our experts. Vitaliy Zadorozhny, the Director for Technologies and the Senior Vice President of Alfa-Bank. Vladislav Otboev, the Head of the Department of the Development of Associated Companies in the VTB Bank. Alexey, the Vice President and the Director of the Department for GovTech Program at Sberbank. Alexander Dolbnev, the Director for the Financial Department work in Yandex Cloud. And Mikhail Tutaev, the Product Director at VK Cloud. And Anton Stepanov, the General Director of T1 Cloud. So, as you see from the titles of our participants, speakers, and the departments that they represent, mostly they represent cloud technologies. That means that clouds exist because we have people who deal with this. So today we have representatives of banks here. They will talk about how they use the technologies and how they don't use them sometimes. And we also have the representatives of cloud providers, and they will talk about where they're heading, what are the main tasks and the vectors of their development. And there are even some unique cases when a bank can also be a cloud solutions provider. So then we'll be also able to discuss it. So, dear friends, let's start our discussion. So, Alexander, the first question goes to you. Let's overview the following. As of today, have we managed to achieve the change in the attitude of business when it comes to the use of cloud solutions? So, in other words, whether business trusts cloud solutions today, whether public clouds are trusted, if we compare them to the private clouds, and what are the key success factors in this market today? Colleagues, soundcheck, good afternoon. I'm very happy to see everybody here. So, to answer your question, your question is in the field of philosophy, I guess, because we are now talking about the behavioral change. And I'm not sure that we can say that there was this moment when the change happened, when, for example, in the past the clouds weren't used and now the clouds are actively used. At the same time, if we take a look at the last 2 to 3 years and we see what's happening, well, the ADC actually forecasted the growth of the cloud business in Russia up until 2025, with the average pace of growth of 20%, if we talk about the hardware, and about 40% of growth when it comes to the platforms, so PaaS. And so if we talk about the facts, and if we review the reports of the cloud solution providers, they are all represented here, then we can see that actually the speed of growth is much faster. And so I guess that this is good ground to say that indeed we do have this shift. We've already experienced it, shift in the behavior. Of course, we still have a lot of questions. Naturally, clouds are not used in all industries now. They are very actively used in the banking sector. This is not a mass event yet. There are a lot of questions to overcome, but still, this behavioral shift has already happened. If we talk about some figures and specifics, then Yandex Cloud today has about 29,000 users. And 100 users actually deliver about 50% of the revenue. That means that large companies use clouds a lot. And if we talk about the growth rate, then in 2022, the growth of Yandex Cloud was estimated at 2.7 times. And the figures of the first half of the year of 2023, the growth rate was 1.8 times. So that means that the pace is quite significant. If we talk about what leads to this situation, why this growth is sustained, why this happened, well, in your question, you already mentioned such words as reliability and security. And so obviously a lot of steps in this direction were taken, and the security of public clouds now has increased a lot. Just as an example, I can talk about the certification and the state standard 5780. And so today we are talking about the banks, and this state standard is the one that mainly applies to the banks. And so Yandex Cloud this year got certified for the third time. And it's very nice to highlight that there are a couple of players in the market that were also certified in accordance with the requirements, the security requirements. So security is our foundation. Also, there are some external factors that boosted this growth and behavioral shift. First, COVID made us go beyond our network contour, and we had to expand our security contour. And that is one of the steps towards the use of clouds. And of course, all the cloud providers have done great work. They made the information in the clouds more accessible. There are more success stories. We see more information about this, and this increases trust, and it helps us to use clouds even more. Thank you, Alexander. So, Anton, now the question is to you. Let's continue on what we started to discuss. So the current situation in which we are now, has it influenced the active usage of cloud solutions, first and foremost Russian ones? If yes, then what are the main criteria here? Maybe the migration from some Western solutions. For some reasons, big business cannot really work with the Western solutions now. Or maybe at the same time, there is less hardware available for data centers, such solutions as servers, as well as software. So what is the situation now? Yes, dear colleagues, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming here. So first, to answer to your question, my first comment will be is that business should always be ready to any kinds of situations. You're asking about the current one. Well, this is indeed unprecedented, but we faced some situations like this in the past, in 2014, 2017, 2020, COVID, etc. And so here we see that if business wants to survive and to develop, then it has to adapt. We already discussed the adaptation before the session. Yes, so just like in China, they say that it's very difficult to live during the time of changes, but we are constantly living in these times. Right, so as to the cloud solutions and demand for that, we analyze the situation comprehensively. What does this mean? This means that we have customers and users that already used clouds before everything that happened recently. So I'll talk about our customers. And so we see the growth, the multiplied growth in the consumption of cloud solutions over the period of 3 years. This was the second reason. The first reason. The second one is, well, of course, the external conditions influenced, because in February, a lot of customers faced some unpredictability, and they addressed this to providers, and so providers actually helped a lot. And so what's interesting is that at that time, there was a discussion that business will develop less and there will be less demand for some resources, but it didn't happen. So the resources consumption actually increased, and some clients, some customers, to have some guarantees, they moved to the clouds. Some of them just continued to work in the public clouds. And another reason, a third one, is that, well, every year the maturity of the customers, the technological maturity grows. If like 2 or 3 years ago we were talking only about IaaS services, but today, colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, but today the PaaS and SaaS are requested, and customers are ready to get used to these services. And so a lot of companies now can't really develop it themselves, and they come to the cloud service providers, and that's how they focus on the development of their business. And as to the situation as it is specifically, well, import substitution, right? So the representatives of the providers that have their own cloud platforms, I mean Russian ones, those who have infrastructure, the virtualization capability. So we're talking about a cloud as a whole. Of course, these providers can actually address the task of import substitution, like the import substitution, and if somebody has a whole stack, this will work. Okay, thank you very much, dear participants. I'm actually amazed because, well, we have some specific time for the response, and now we have 2 champions, you know, because they were very sharp on time within the timeline that was supposed to be given to them, 4 minutes. Thank you very much for being very punctual and staying within the timeline. We've already listened to 2 cloud services providers. So now let's talk about what banks think about it. Vitaliy, do you use cloud solutions now? To what extent? And if we don't talk about private clouds, do you use public clouds? And in what part of your business? So here I would like to give you just a couple of historical facts. So banks always lived their own lives, well, we never were striving at using the public clouds. And over the last 15 to 10 years, the whole banking sector digitalized a lot. And we focused a lot on fast development, on fast cycle of the development. And when it comes to back end, middle end, well, it's another story, but front end has to change very fast. We have to interact with our customers in a very fast mode. Now, when it comes to front end and clouds, well, banks have to go to the cloud solutions, and we use it. And now we've started this complex story with the technological sovereignty. In the past, the regulator didn't really allow us to go to the public clouds, but now we've established very constructive dialogue with the regulator. We are being heard, and we would like to legalize the rules of the game in this field, and I expect that in the first quarter this will happen, and we'll be able to use public clouds. Of course, there are some details when it comes to PaaS, SaaS, there are some details as well. Now we are talking more about hybrid cloud. and in the timeline of from 5 to 7 years, we will have like a 3-point infrastructure, and one of the hybrid clouds that we will have, it will be like external cloud. If we have any difficulties with the capacity and the service, then we can, for example, wait a little bit. And we can slow down the development. But when we get everything that we need, then we can continue. So my main idea is that we are just, we don't hurry. We are waiting for some regulation changes, but we implement. And most of our technologies and sites are already in the public clouds, and we are very open in this respect. Because, well, as they say, there is something there, right? And on top of the capacity, and because now we do have some problems with the supplies of different hardware. Public clouds help banking sector now in this respect. Because, well, banks have some peak days, right, when we have to pay salaries, etc. And so this fast resources from the technological part helps us a lot. So I think now I'm the champion when it comes to the length of my speech. Right, I was the shortest. Right, thank you very much. And so, indeed, we will talk a little bit more about how to manage in between the different solutions. And Mikhail, now the question goes to you. And now we'll be discussing some hard questions. So what helps a client actually to move to the cloud solutions, whether it's the scalability and dynamic changes, or maybe this is the opportunity to use some applications if needed, those that cannot really be efficiently supported by the company itself. And another question, and it's quite controversial, I guess, is there any economical aspect when it comes to the movement to cloud solutions? Do we save any money with this? Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. So I'll just start with the order that you outlined. So clients move to the cloud solutions when it's convenient for them. And when, for example, they are waiting for some service and they need to develop something right now, they can move to the cloud solutions. The second aspect here, Mikhail, just one specification. Do I understand correctly that the main group of clients actually use the cloud technologies as the development environment? Right, that's correct. And, well, I guess that is the simplest way to actually start the development, because the developers in the company is the driving force. A company can have a lot of different teams, and there are different requirements towards the set of services that are needed. They are not always available to the team, and sometimes some time is needed to actually get those resources. And, well, I guess that cloud providers, they offer similar solutions, and this set of their solutions is good for just standard development, web development. That's the first thing that we start with. You were talking about dynamical scaling. It's also a factor for some companies that experience some season changes in their businesses. They can save a lot with the cloud when we talk about the solutions available in the market. But if we talk about the saving aspect, well, here it's indeed a controversial question. The question is how we calculate it, because data centers and physical service, they are more or less cost the same for everybody, and it's obvious that cloud providers have a discount because they buy a standardized hardware. We don't have that many positions actually that we buy, and we can use the resources, utilize them very efficiently, so we don't have any big disbalances. And I believe that this is mostly offset by the number of people that maintain and develop those services that will later sell to the market. So I guess that this is a question of parity.
But if we speak about narrow specialized services like artificial intelligence or data services, here clouds definitely give us some savings, because this is a quite narrow field. It requires rare specialists, rare experts, which we should first find and then build it all up. And clouds help us a lot here. And next thing that I want to point out, these savings comes up when the applications are being developed according to the rules of placement them in the cloud. And in this case, clouds show us their full potential, and we have a lot of savings back. But it requires proper approach from users, which they use. Let's ask banks here very quickly, dear colleagues, because this is a question for quick discussion. Vladislav, what do you think? Is there any savings when they move to cloud solutions, speaking about public clouds in this case, or is it not? Is it negligible for banks when they consider cloud products? Well, probably you shouldn't be in a vacuum now. We are sitting in within certain regulations and provisions, and now at the moment when you make a decision whether to move to the cloud, to the public cloud or private cloud, we should be based on three pillars. First pillar is the availability of the product. Second thing is the cost. And third pillar is safety and regulations. We are a big bank, and first and foremost, we have to provide reliable services to our customers for whom we are a financial partner. And this is the key thing for us. And here I wouldn't make it a secret of it, dear colleagues, and the majority of the resources we consume is our IT infrastructure. At the same time, according to the current legislation, the legislation on personal data and banking activities, there are loopholes which in general allow to pass some part of PII and sensitive information to a client side. Here we speak about biometry, personal data, banking secret. But in order to do this, we spend significant investments from the point of view of business processes, architecture, from the point of view of our resources. And having implemented this whole bunch of things with the consent of the client, of course, we arrive at some paradigm, ideological paradigm, if you may. The responsibility for the moment, if God sakes some leakage appears, is on the frontman, on the bank. But, however, it could happen on our colleagues' side, on our counterparty's side. And now we have the question of the risk appetite here. And probably depending on the scale of the organization, it goes either upwards or downwards. But again, we should say thank you, and we should give our respect to our central bank, which is the best bank in the world, who thought about us and already produced for the second reading draft, which could raise these limitations. The main novelties which exist in this provision are in two things. First thing is that providers will also be responsible for any violations, and it will be also financially liable. Second thing, we now get a transparent algorithm of verifying providers. It's not someone said that it's okay with us, but we will have a very clear-cut and transparent instrument to certify when we make some critical decisions. And on my opinion, after this decision-making process, the development of providers would happen in a very quick way. And we will look at providers not only at companies which do more for small and medium enterprises, but at specific players which would come to big players, to majors, and offer good solutions. But nevertheless, will there be a border, or a limit for the bank not to go beyond it in giving its infrastructure, or will banks be absolutely completely in the cloud? And again, it's about the product. If we speak about AIS, the question will depend on the calculation of ITCO. If we will speak about the fact that it is cheap, it would be cheaper to place it outside if we understand that the limitations related to Kia, know your customer, could just spread this load for the client. For the counterparties, they will have a certain rule to provide. If we speak about SAS and BIS, we should discuss it further. This is a challenging process related to more changing of role of a provider in the global service ecosystem. Thank you very much. Okay, well, dear colleagues, let's give a hand to our experts, because banks are openly demonstrating a very progressive position. It has changed with years when the banking sphere allows the use of third-party solutions in their infrastructure, and this is a big progress, I think. And we have not only the best regulator in the world, we have the best banks in the world. Alexey, a question goes to you. Let's discuss one of the biggest players in the cloud market. The state is becoming more and more active consumer of cloud technologies today. First question, what's the concept is in the basis of the state roadmap of cloud development? That's first. And the second, the state, the government today, is a synonym to the import substitution, Russian import. Everything which is used by the state is more and more should become Russian and domestic. How it happens in part of the cloud solutions for public service, for public demands in the hardware and software side, because there's a hardware basis like servers, storages, communications, everything which lies as a foundation of the cloud. What's the situation in the market? Are there any peculiarities in using Russian-made solutions? The state, in my opinion, is one of the basic players in the cloud technologies market. Since 2018, the government have been experimenting with placing systems on cloud platforms, and this experiment was a success. Billions of rubles were invested in building up the cloud infrastructure. It was predominantly about infrastructural services. Since 2023, according to the instruction of the president, all state information systems of federal authorities must be placed on cloud platforms, and starting from 2024, also regional systems should be there. And basically, the presidential decree sets forth the norm, the obligation of public authorities to place all their systems in the cloud, and not just in the cloud, but they must use PaaS services. They have to buy platforms as a services. And of course, it creates a huge demand for the infrastructure and for platform services as they are. And the state uses only domestic technologies and domestic equipment. And I have to tell you that in general, there's no doubt that stack technologies exist and are available in the domestic market, and they do work. Of course, it happens not without issues, and the main issues are related to not productivity, but to their reliability, because the production volumes of our equipment is not so high as in the West or in the East. They are not so loaded, not so very well tested in some configurations. So all those issues have to be handled on the fly by us, by our experts. And we have a very interesting indicator of the level of attention to this issue. For example, in our bank, at the level of our board members, people really know the wiring IDs of data. We have such deep knowledge there, because there's always on the agenda the question, do vendors update the BIOS and what wiring number we have? This is a temporary solution, of course. At the moment, we have to have more redundancy, give less load, and get the utilization level a bit lower. It all results in the fact that so far domestic technologies are a little bit more expensive versus those we used previously. If we speak about platform services, now we have a big amount of open source developments of ours, and our developers remove everything which cannot be certified according to the information security, which can be of a potential danger. It all becomes an in-house product with a vendor which has developed this product, and those platform services are used successfully when building up state information systems. And generally speaking, about the state strategy, why we really need to move to the cloud, why we need to move to platform services. If previously systems were created monolithic and there was a fixed vendor lock for state information systems, now this transition to microservice infrastructure and platform-based services when creating state systems allows us to unbundle ourselves from those vendors who have held their special directions and make this market of state development more safe and more competitive. Okay, colleagues, very short question. Who's ready to answer first? As regards state clouds, we have to use Russian solutions. We must do it because there's no alternative to that. But what if someone of you uses voluntarily those Russian-made solutions in your cloud infrastructures because you want to do it? Anton, yes, the answer is very short. Yes, we do. What do you use? And in some parts where you don't have to, servers, network, security. Well, so it means that today Russian-made solutions have reached not only the state when it is a need set by the state, but this is already a very good market product. Yes, that's true. It's a market product. I would add, my reply is also yes. Generally speaking, we as a platform are absolutely compatible to everything about in hardware, and in software you use security systems and operating systems, Russian-made ones, because some clients of ours ask for it. Some of them is based on software, and some others use it for piloting and testing. We as Yandex Cloud, of course, make a stake to our own development, and I think many people know that there are solutions in the market in BI like Data Lens, our own development, our in-house development. Such databases as Yandex database is also our own in-house development, which is available on the cloud and as a managed service. And this database is in the register of domestic software, and our whole products are basically in the register of our own software. Okay, Vitaliy, let's continue listening to the banks. In the past, businesses and some banks already mentioned that they have actively used foreign solutions. Did you manage to find a good replacement today from Russian providers, or did you have to develop them on their own, or just go without them? Let's split your question in two parts. In terms of the opportunities to use and what do we do in case we cannot use foreign products for the organization and to organize cloud solutions in-house. Unfortunately, the situation is not as brilliant as it might seem. With the security, everything is okay. In the operating system, we have some programs. In the other parts of the stack, some is in-house, some open source, other is gray import, if you may call it like that. As regards the services colleagues provide, the second part of this panel, I mean, previously we didn't use it much. We just had some look at it, did small experiments. Now we do see that everything which lies beyond AIS is brilliant. In PAS we have some details but issues, but more or less optimistic. What colleagues have in-house, they probably tell themselves. But as we see it for ourselves, for a private cloud, there's not very positive in terms of services available in the market and can be bought when we transform to cloud native after a tedious journey. And this is a complicated way, sometimes expensive, not always obvious. Well, at least the service market colleagues present here for external clouds is more or less positive. I think there are some engineering issues, how to fine-tune business cycle quickly, variable cloud native based. I think this can be sorted out within 1 year. Okay, thank you very much, Alexander. A question to you. Is there a big share of banks in your cloud business? And what is bank as a client? Is it a big client comparable to some other clients from other industries, or is it still a bank as a unique consumer with unique requirements? Which factors do you see that could make bank use more of banking products, and is there any limit there which cannot be overcome? Thanks for your questions. There are many questions. Let's answer them one by one. A short answer to the share of banks. Yes, the share of banks in our business is quite high. Speaking about figures or numbers, banks and the fintech sector were among top of our consumers in Yandex, and they stay at this place, and we still see a quick dynamics of growing there. In the first 6 months of this year, the consumption grew by 1.9 times, which is higher than the average growth of consumption in all our clients, and this is very pleasant for us. Another interesting example, in 2022, the average check of banks and fintechs grew by 4 times. So we here also see a significant breakthrough in this sphere. If we speak whether the bank is a big client, we should point out that we have 324 banks, if I remember, including banks with basic licenses. And on one hand, not any bank is equal a major client for us, but on the other hand, our banks among our clients are among top consumers of our cloud services. And we should know that for the moment, we have more than 20 banks are clients of Yandex Cloud, and some dozens of companies on top of them offering insurance and fintech services. These are our active clients. What else is interesting? Banks are also among big consumers, and the potential of banks as consumers is quite high. And on the opinion of IDC, is one of the most voluminous industries in the future, and we do see it on our numbers. Speaking about the bank specifics, of course, there is specifics. We can say that apart from the banking secret issue, which have already been mentioned today, which is one of the deterrent factors for banking growth and moving banks to clouds, from the part of the regulator, there are certain standards, GOST standards. It's like 57508, the provisions of the central bank which are mandatory for cloud projects, like provision 802P and 877P about operating risks. It all have to be taken into account when working with clouds, and it puts some specifics on those projects which doesn't exist in other industries. If we speak about what can be done and what has to be done to improve the situation even more, I wouldn't say that now it's not good now. It is already good with banks, but it can be even more better. Very briefly, at the level of the state, what can be done? It's clear that we should finish the work with the whole community in changing the legislation in terms of the banking secret. It has been discussed today already. The work is done at the level of the regulator. We should continue proactive work on systematizing the operation of the cloud market in general, because Banking Russia is really active there, and it helps with the banking secret issue. And in this year, in 2023, the Board of Directors of Bank of Russia fixed the main provisions of the information security, where there is a section for clouds, which is pleasant for us too.
And the third aspect is that we, as a community of cloud providers, we should continue the work that we've already been doing quite actively for the last couple of years to raise trust towards clouds, and it will also result in the growth of the cloud's utilization. And just another short comment, if there is like a borderline, well, I guess in the nearest future the banks will be shifting their focus towards using the Russian-made software, and clouds can help here. And if we talk about the horizon of about 5 years, then the major banks shouldn't really be in a hurry with the clouds in their core systems. But in my opinion, clouds are the future for the banking sector, because every banking segment can profit from clouds. For the major leading banks, clouds can help to preserve their leadership positions through technological leadership. For middle-sized banks, clouds can help them to save money because, well, sometimes it's not always a driving force for the major banks. And for small-sized banks, the transfer to the clouds can be actually the question of survival. Because step by step, the requirements by the regulator are enforced. They're becoming even more complicated, and some small banks find it difficult to continuously adapt to these new requirements. On the one hand, they should be fully consistent with the requirements, but on the other hand, they, of course, should have their margins. And if clouds are allowed completely, then small banks will be able to work in the clouds for some period of time. Okay, thank you. So I guess that we've touched upon the topic that raised some vibrations. So, okay, now let's also listen to the representatives of banks, and then let's talk to the providers of the cloud solutions again. So, Vladislav, the question is to you. Cloud technologies as the development environment for banks. We discussed it. And to follow up on this topic, there is an opinion, and it was already mentioned before, that banks use public clouds in the client service. Is that true? And what are the services that are mostly in demand? Another question, do Russian providers have any unique services today that banks use in the client service? And whether there is like a close interaction between banks and the cloud providers? Well, first, I wanted to thank you for the moderation, because today we have a very well-structured dialogue. So today we've discussed 3 main pillars. As I said, product, the cost, and security, right? Like cost and security, we already discussed it. And now let's talk about the product. Well, clouds are useful for the fast testing of the products as well as for scaling. And so when we get a product, then we have 2 main questions. The first question is how to support it, to maintain it. And the second question is the development of the product. It is especially important for outsourced products, those that are the foundation of the cloud service. And in my opinion, there is some zone of growth for cloud providers. If we talk about some absolute figures, now quite often we hear some growth in percentage, like 2, 3 to 4%. But we do understand that today clouds are underdogs when it comes to the market share and the revenue in the market, if we compare them to the integrators and developers. So if we talk about money here, then well, I guess that the portion of budget of money that we use on cloud providers is not that big, but the penetration is actually quite high. And well, we have colleagues here who helped us to get a service of unified communications, and it has become the foundation for our work after the pandemic. Okay, and so when you say like 100% penetration, you mean that you use all the services by the cloud providers, right? Yes, so we have the video conference tool, Dion it's called. Every employee of our bank uses this service in their work. And well, this is a cloud service. Why do I mention this? It's because it's very important for cloud providers to identify the niches that will be, on the one hand, be in demand, and on the other hand, won't be limited by the regulation. And I guess that next years we'll talk about the development tools. We have a very nice product for the development. We used to have nice products for the development from abroad. And well, now I really hope that we'll be able to replace it with some Russian-made solutions. And in the future, we should only be using clouds. It's about the integration of voice assistant. This is the case that we also presented yesterday at our stand with the cloud. We have Alice. It's the Siri, but from Yandex. We also have Tamara, another voice assistant. So it's not just a dialogue about hybrid clouds, but it's about some specific use that will be applicable not only within the financial system, like on the back end, but also it will be available at the front end, I mean to the clients. Okay, so Mikhail, I saw that you had a comment, and then I'll ask you a question. Right, I wanted to comment, actually to follow up on what Alexander said. We do have an experience of working with banks. And in fact, banks basically use the same services as all other companies. The only difference here, the only difference of clients from fintech is that we talk more to the security teams from the customer side, and we talk less with the technical stuff. And so those are the customers that actually go very deep into the internal organization of the provider's work when it comes to the documents, regulations, the support level, and they track all this very carefully. But the rest is banks are not that different when it comes to the rest of the services. Okay, thank you. And now I have a question for you. If we overview the worldwide leaders in the cloud market, we see that there is an environment. There are distributors, integrators, and in general, this channel earns money not on reselling of calculating capacity or anything else, but they earn money on consulting on how to transfer to clouds, as well as on migration, because migration is not as easy as it might seem. So, does this environment exist in Russia? Do integrators, okay, we'll not talk about integrators, distributors. Do integrators work on this market as well? Or you offer this service as a cloud provider and you also do integration as a cloud provider? Well, yes, we do have integrators in the Russian market. There are some integrators that develop clouds themselves, and also there are other integrators that work with the cloud providers. Right, okay, and so in this case, we position ourselves as a training center. We explain how a cloud architecture looks like, and then the integrator does migration and consulting for the customer for us, and they also actually transfer all the data. So I wouldn't say that in Russia it's like very well developed already, but year by year we see some more demand coming. We've had a partnership conference, and we've got a lot of partners over the past 6 months. Thank you. And so how do you see the model of the possible development? Who should become more mature, more ready? Whether the provider should understand that today it's very important to build the channel of the promotion of their products into the market. Who should be more active in this respect, one side or the other one, like the cloud providers or the integrators? To answer to that, I think both. Actually, before the session we discussed that there are multiple cloud solutions, the virtualization platforms and services. For those partners that invest in the training of their staff. Because, well, one understands that in some time they'll get the return on this investment. And when we have like 20 to 30 players in the market and everybody says, you know, I'm the best, it's not always clear who is really the best. So my idea is that the market should get some more balance and maturity on the one hand, and also the market players should get some experience to actually properly transfer all the data of the clients to the clouds. Okay, thank you, Alexey. Let's continue on the topic of clouds from the infrastructure and maintenance point of view. If we take a look at the international market, there are a lot of cases when multi-vendor cloud solutions are suggested. So there are cloud providers, some of them, and they have unique or like best solutions when it comes to some particular functionality. And so today the customer companies, they just distribute their tasks among these different providers. And that's how the infrastructure comes into play. There are a lot of different forums in the field of cloud technologies, and there are a lot of companies that help to organize all this. Like they explain which function is best for which provider. When we talk about the Russian cloud providers market, is there any point in this multi-vendor model? If we don't talk about security, but just in general, is there any point in this, and who can manage this multi-vendor system? Should it be the customer with their competence that should be developed, or should there be some integration element that we expect from the market to appear? To answer to that, I guess that at the commercial market, the customers of the cloud solutions, they make their choices proceeding from their priorities. Well, I am more aware of the public or state market. So for the state, for the government, the most important point in the cloud technologies is the technological sovereignty and security and safety. And so to be able to control it, to manage it, the state isn't ready to distribute information resources among different providers and vendors. That's why the state, the government, conducts a policy to concentrate all the solutions in one provider. And this provider gets all the technologies from the market and integrates it within itself. How does it happen? There are multiple state systems, hundreds of them. They've been developed historically starting from 2000s, and they include different layers of technologies. Some of those are historical ones. They also have some databases and open source solutions that weren't used by the developers at that time. And to make these systems secure now on the cloud platform, one needs to replace the old technologies with the new ones. That's why the state, the government analyzes the technologies that were used, then they also pick up the similar technologies in the Russian market, and then they do the migration from the old technologies to the new ones, and it is all done within the government-owned platform. So from the government point of view, this is about the presence of all the vendors that they need on one platform. And then they give to this platform all the functions that are needed. Because, well, on the one hand, they need to maintain and support the legacy system, and also need to develop some new systems. So I guess that's the approach now. And also the state is very careful about the choice of these vendors and providers of cloud technologies. For example, if we talk about commercial platforms that are not connected to the state at all, usually the government doesn't use them. Usually the platforms that are used for the state services, they are more or less owned by some state-owned corporations and the government, and that's how they are controlled. So I guess we can say that in cloud technologies, the state shifts towards big private cloud. It's private for the government, and it's on the private state platform. Right, so in this cloud, one can find a lot of different vendors and providers proceeding from their niches. Okay, thank you. And so this model, when the platform is based on some government cloud, will that not slow down the development? Maybe we should have some like migration every 4 years or something. There are some interesting effects because the updated stack of technologies, taking into account that there is a big number of different operators, every update of the technological stack is quite a pain because all the governmental systems are developed in accordance with the state contract. And well, we should take into account everything, that all the operators should also update their technologies, and that's why the release is done roughly once a year. Another aspect is that when developers face the necessity to migrate to a cloud platform, they see some large technological debt. So what they didn't really care about in the past, now they have to show everything. It's about the development conveyor, the security and safety of information, some technological solutions within the system. In the past, it wasn't that visible, but now it becomes visible. And so from the state contract point of view, it's quite difficult because it will mean that now the government money will be spent on the refactoring and re-engineering of something that was done before. And so when it comes to the investment in the technology, we should be aware of that technological debt. Okay, thank you. So, Anton, you are to finalize our discussion today. We started with security and we are finishing with the security. The question of trust is largely about the perception of security or the real security. The main question about the migration to the cloud is about whether the data will be secured and processed in a secure way. So what solutions are used now by the providers to make everything secure and safe? What are the most efficient solutions? And what is the role of the regulator in this process? And so last question, is it safe enough to be in the cloud now or not? Okay, thank you. So security and safety are the issues that are the most important ones. And this is the first question that is posed by the majority of clients. What shall we start with? I guess that we should start with the measures that are used by the cloud providers. If we talk about the structure, then those could be organizational measures and technical measures. From the organizational point of view, we need to protect our infrastructure as a company, and we also need to protect the customer's infrastructure. And of course, we need to have policies. And we should have those policies not only on paper, but those policies should also be respected and implemented. And also the technical aspect, those are security tools. Some special ones, some general ones that are known to everybody, firewalls, antiviruses, anti-DDoS, etc. Those are the measures that are used by the providers. And a lot depends on how efficiently this all will be applied. From the regulator's point of view, well, regulators are needed and regulators are indeed significant and important. Well, we call ourselves a cloud provider, but de facto and de jure we are a communication operator, and that means that we have some more restrictions and requirements. So, 49 documents regulate our activities, starting from the decrees by the president, the orders of the government, the orders of the special agency, Roskomnadzor, the Ministry of Communication, and many, many others. Also the orders of the Federal Security Service, and etc.
And the problem which sits in this story, answering your question whether it is safe to be in the cloud today, it is safe, and also regarding the trust, when clients come to the cloud, they don't have time to get to the professional details of it, do they? And the question of trust or mistrust appears from the impossibility, to obvious reason, to collect the whole information, to be able to build this trust on it. To explain that 49 regulatory acts and what do they regulate, it's a very complicated task, you know. How can we solve this issue to improve trust by higher awareness, by consulting and other things? We are in the cloud, took a radical way. We got certificates for the federal laws based on 187 for critical infrastructure. For the GOST standard mentioned today, we just got the highest level of significance, first category on Federal Law 187 and other laws and other provisions. If I understand correctly, if we are in line with all possible security sectors, we are the safest, right? No, that's not about that. We do not sort out the issue to be the safest. We just cover the applicable issue. A company comes to us and tries to figure it out. There's some cross sections. We should be sure here and certain there in different regulatory acts. We don't want to mess up the client. That we just do it like that. And answering to your final question, of course, it's safe in the cloud. You can live there. You can exist in the cloud safely. And as yesterday Mr. Sobyanin mentioned in the session, we came together to this hall. This hall can get on fire. Where is the risk of sitting in the cloud and not sitting there? Any element of the structure is a risk. Let's not use servers, okay, but we should be reasonable on our approaches. Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Let's give a hand to our speakers. Let's thank them for their interesting discussion. I think it was really exciting. Thanks for your time that you've come here to this session and shared your opinions here. Thank you very much to our audience, to our viewership who stayed with us all this time. And what else I wanted to point out in the end? I think we saw a very interesting dynamics in the recent 4 years. There was a good quantum of time. We couldn't have seen it in 1 year, but in 4 years it was possible. We saw serious changes in the positions of banks and providers. And providers, I think, they are now quite mature, serious players in the market, which we couldn't see 4 years ago. It was just in the beginning 4 years ago. Now in the Russian market, we have very powerful players in the area of cloud, in cloud business, and like to wish all our participants of the discussion to move on in this area together, that Russian solutions take a significant place, not only in the Russian cloud market, but also going beyond it in other markets, because the number of ideas, brains and solutions is huge in Russia, and it would be at least strange not to try to roll it out to a broader sector than just in Russia. Thank you very much for your discussions once again, for your interesting opinions and for your time here. Thank you.